The ballroom was drenched in gold light, laughter rising, champagne bubbling, music swelling like it had a heartbeat of its own. Everyone was paired, dancing, kissing, or whispering something sweet under the glow of chandeliers. Everyone except her. Evelyn Moore sat near the edge of it all, her wheelchair angled slightly away from the crowd. Her dress was black satin, elegant yet simple, her hair pinned neatly, but with strands that had long given up trying to stay in place. Billionaire. That's what the papers called her. The woman who rebuilt an empire from dust. But tonight, she felt invisible, a trophy guest at a wedding she didn't belong in. She hated weddings. Too much pretending. Too much laughter that never reached the eyes. She sipped her wine and watched as couples danced under the fairy lights, her mind wandering back to all the times she'd been asked to dance, before the accident, before her body became a map of scars and steel. And that's when she appeared. A woman in a silver dress, laughing as she spun through the crowd, her heels catching the light like sparks. Her name was Aria. Evelyn had overheard it earlier during introductions. She was a friend of the bride, not rich, not powerful, just magnetic. The kind of woman who smiled like she knew secrets about the universe. Arya noticed Evelyn sitting alone. For a moment, their eyes met, and something inside Evelyn shifted. It wasn't pity in Arya's gaze. It was curiosity, warmth, maybe even mischief. As the music slowed, Arya excused herself from the dance floor and walked toward Evelyn. Every step made Evelyn's chest tighten. No one ever approached her first. They smiled politely, nodded respectfully, but no one dared to cross that invisible line. Arya stopped in front of her, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "Why are you sitting here all alone?" she asked softly. Evelyn tilted her glass. "I could ask you the same thing." Arya's eyes sparkled. "Because I'm looking for a date." Evelyn let out a quiet laugh, surprised at herself. "And you thought I'd be a good choice?" "I think you'd be the best choice," Arya said, voice dipping low, as if it were a secret meant only for her. Then, without hesitation, she extended her hand. "So, Evelyn Moore, will you be my date?" The words hung in the air, daring, impossible, electric. Evelyn stared at her hand, at the confidence in her smile, and something reckless inside her said yes before her mind could argue. "All right," Evelyn murmured, slipping her fingers into Arya's warm, steady hand. And for the first time in years, Evelyn felt like she was being seen, not as a billionaire, not as a woman in a wheelchair, but as a woman someone wanted. Evelyn's heart drummed beneath her ribs as Arya's fingers tightened gently around hers. The warmth of that touch was enough to make her forget the dull ache in her legs, the one that never really left. Arya didn't hesitate. She moved closer, pulling a chair from the next table and sitting beside Evelyn, their knees nearly touching. The scent of her perfume, jasmine with a hint of citrus, made the air hum between them. So Arya began, her voice low and teasing. "Do billionaires usually sit alone at weddings, or is this a one-time thing?" Evelyn smirked. "Depends. Sometimes we prefer quiet over forced conversations." "And sometimes," Arya said, leaning in, "quiet is just another word for lonely." That caught Evelyn off guard. No one ever said things like that to her, not without trying to fix her, or flatter her, or impress her. Arya just said it like it was true. Evelyn looked into those soft brown eyes, saw the sincerity shimmering beneath the playfulness, and felt her defenses falter. The band began playing a slower tune, a romantic, dreamy melody that seemed to hush the room. Couples drifted toward the dance floor. Arya tilted her head toward it and smiled. "Come on." Evelyn's lips parted in disbelief. "Arya, I can't." "You can," Arya interrupted softly. "Just follow my lead." Before Evelyn could protest, Arya stood and moved behind her wheelchair, gently guiding her onto the edge of the dance floor. The crowd melted away as they found a quiet corner where no one else was watching. Arya knelt in front of her, her silver dress pooling like liquid light around them. "May I?" Arya asked, reaching for Evelyn's hand again. Evelyn hesitated for only a heartbeat, then nodded. Their fingers intertwined. Arya began to sway slowly, moving her hand in time with the rhythm, guiding Evelyn's motions so that even from her chair, she was dancing. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't traditional. But it was beautiful. Evelyn felt the music in her bones, in the way Aria's thumb brushed against her skin. They moved together, small motions, subtle, intimate. Aria's gaze never wavered. It was full of warmth, admiration, maybe something deeper. "You're incredible," Aria whispered, almost as if she didn't mean to say it out loud. Evelyn laughed softly, her cheeks flushing. "You barely know me." "I don't have to," Aria said. "Sometimes you just feel things. Don't you?" Evelyn wanted to say no, wanted to keep that wall up, but when Aria leaned closer, close enough that her breath grazed Evelyn's cheek, she couldn't lie. "Yes," she whispered. "I feel it." The music faded, but neither of them let go. Around them, laughter and clinking glasses resumed, but it felt like another world entirely. For the first time in years, Evelyn didn't care who was watching. When the song ended, Aria didn't move right away. She lingered there, her hand still holding Evelyn's, her breath soft against her cheek. The crowd began to cheer for the newlyweds, glasses clinking and laughter rising again, but the sound felt distant, like it belonged to another universe entirely. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Aria smiled, a little shyly this time. "Do you want to get some air? It's too warm in here." Evelyn nodded, grateful for the excuse. The ballroom was suddenly too full, too much noise, too many eyes. Aria gently wheeled her out through the glass doors that led to the garden. The night air was cool, brushing against Evelyn's skin like silk. Lanterns hung from the trees, glowing amber, casting soft halos of light across the stone path. It was quiet, just the chirping of crickets and the faint hum of music spilling from inside. Aria moved to stand beside her, close enough that their arms brushed lightly. Evelyn felt her pulse quicken at the contact. "You dance beautifully," Aria said after a pause. Evelyn chuckled. "You made that possible. You carried most of the rhythm." Aria turned toward her, smiling. "Maybe, but you were the reason it felt like dancing." The words sank deep. Evelyn wasn't used to compliments that saw her and not the image of her, the billionaire, the woman in the wheelchair, the survivor. There was something disarming about Aria, something that broke through the walls she'd built to keep people at a distance. "I'm not used to this," Evelyn confessed softly. "To what?" "Being noticed." Aria looked at her for a long moment, her expression tender. Then she knelt beside her again, just like she had on the dance floor. "Evelyn, anyone who doesn't notice you isn't looking properly." Evelyn swallowed hard, her throat tightening. The way Aria said it, calm, sincere, without pity, made her chest ache. "I've spent a long time pretending that I'm fine," Evelyn said quietly. "That I don't need anyone." Aria reached out and brushed a strand of hair from Evelyn's face, her fingers grazing her skin. "And tonight, Evelyn whispered, "I don't want to pretend." The air between them shimmered with something unspoken tension, longing, the kind that makes the world slow down. Aria leaned closer, her eyes searching Evelyn's for permission. Evelyn didn't move away. Their foreheads touched first, a soft, lingering moment, before Aria pressed her lips gently against hers. The kiss was slow, hesitant at first, but full of emotion. It wasn't about passion or urgency, it was about being seen, about being wanted in a way Evelyn had forgotten she could be. When they finally parted, Aria rested her hand on Evelyn's cheek, smiling softly. "I've wanted to do that since the moment I saw you sitting alone." Evelyn's voice trembled. "You're dangerous, Aria." Aria laughed quietly. "Only if you want me to be." The wedding had begun to wind down by the time Evelyn and Aria made their way back inside. The music softened, the guests mellowed, and laughter gave way to tired smiles. Evelyn's driver waited by the entrance, but Aria lingered, her fingers lightly brushing against Evelyn's as if afraid to break the fragile spell between them. "Would you like to join me for a nightcap?" Evelyn asked, her tone steady, but her heart racing. "There's a beautiful view from my suite." Aria's lips curved into a small smile, not one of surprise, but of quiet understanding. "I'd love to." The elevator ride was silent, though not awkward. The air between them pulsed with quiet energy, every glance, every breath charged with meaning. Arya stood close enough that Evelyn could feel the heat from her skin. When the doors opened, they stepped into a private suite overlooking the ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city lights, their reflection shimmering across the polished marble floor. Arya let out a soft breath. You live surrounded by beauty. Evelyn turned her wheelchair toward the window. Sometimes. But it feels empty when you have no one to share it with. Arya walked behind her, placing her hands gently on Evelyn's shoulders. The simple contact made Evelyn close her eyes. Then tonight, Arya whispered, it's not empty. Evelyn reached up, her hand finding Arya's. Their fingers intertwined again, the same way they had during their dance, and it felt natural, inevitable. Arya moved to face her, kneeling just enough so their eyes met at the same level. The glow of the city bathed them both in soft gold. You make it easy to forget the world, Evelyn said quietly. That's all I wanted, Arya murmured, brushing a thumb over Evelyn's cheek. There was no rush, no hunger, just the slow unfolding of closeness. Arya leaned in and kissed her again, deeper this time, but still tender. It was the kind of kiss that carried a story, the hesitation, the yearning, the silent promise that this moment was more than curiosity. Evelyn's hand rested on Arya's waist, feeling the warmth beneath the satin fabric. Arya's touch was careful, reverent, tracing the outline of Evelyn's face as if she were learning it by heart. When they finally drew apart, Evelyn's breath trembled. It's been a long time since someone looked at me like that. Arya smiled softly. Maybe they were all looking at the wrong version of you. Evelyn laughed quietly, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from release. You make me feel alive again. Arya leaned in, pressing her forehead to Evelyn's. Then let's stay right here for a while. No past. No tomorrow. Just this. And so they did. The two women sat together by the window, hands entwined, watching the city lights fade into the quiet glow of dawn, a new beginning written softly between their heartbeats. The morning crept in softly, washing the room in pale gold. The sound of waves rolled through the half-open balcony doors, mingling with the faint hum of the city far below. Evelyn stirred first, her eyes adjusting to the light that spilled across the floor and caught the edge of Arya's silver dress, now draped over the back of a chair. Arya sat near the window, wrapped in one of Evelyn's silk robes, gazing out at the horizon with a small, contented smile. For a moment, Evelyn simply watched her, the quiet curve of her shoulders, the way sunlight kissed the tips of her hair. She had forgotten what mornings like this felt like, peaceful, unguarded, full of warmth that wasn't born from sunlight, but from presence. Arya turned, sensing the gaze. Good morning, she said softly, her voice still husky from sleep. Evelyn smiled. You look like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. Arya laughed gently and crossed the room, sitting on the edge of Evelyn's bed. Flattery before breakfast? I could get used to this. Evelyn's expression softened. I'm not flattering you. Last night, it meant something. I don't usually let people close. Arya's hand found hers. I guess that. There was a pause, a comfortable silence, filled only by the rhythm of the ocean. Then Evelyn took a breath, her tone quieter. The accident happened 5 years ago. I was driving back from a meeting, exhausted, careless. A truck came out of nowhere. She paused, her voice trembling slightly. They said I was lucky to survive. But I didn't feel lucky for a long time. Arya's fingers tightened around hers. You don't have to keep talking if it hurts. No, Evelyn said, meeting her gaze. It's the first time it doesn't. Maybe because you're listening, not as someone who pities me, but as someone who sees me. Arya's eyes shimmered. I see a woman who fought her way back when the world tried to take everything from her. Evelyn exhaled shakily, her lips curving into a small smile. You make me sound brave. You're brave, Arya said simply. And beautiful. And stubborn. And maybe a little intimidating, but in the best way. Evelyn laughed softly, wiping away a stray tear. The heaviness that had lived inside her for years felt lighter now, like the sea breeze had carried it away. Arya leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Whatever happened before, it doesn't define you. What matters is what you still choose to feel. Evelyn closed her eyes at the touch. And right now I feel grateful. To you. They stayed like that for a long time, no words, no rush. Just two women finding quiet understanding in the glow of morning light, where pain met hope and began to heal. The city was alive that afternoon, a gentle hum of motion, color, and sound. After breakfast on the balcony, Arya convinced Evelyn to join her for a day out. Evelyn hesitated at first. She wasn't used to being out in crowds anymore. But Arya had a way of making fear feel smaller, like the world wasn't something to avoid, but something to rediscover. They took Evelyn's custom car, the one she rarely used outside of business meetings. Arya sat beside her, window down, wind threading through her hair as she sang along softly to the radio. Evelyn found herself smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in what felt like years. Their first stop was the harbor. Arya insisted on getting ice cream, even though the wind carried a chill. "It's not about the weather," she said, handing Evelyn a cone. "It's about the moment." Evelyn took it, laughing quietly as the cold sweetness melted too fast in the sun. They strolled along the promenade, talking about everything and nothing. Arya told stories about her travels, her art, the small cafe she wanted to open one day. Evelyn listened, her eyes tracing the curve of Arya's smile, the way her words painted dreams in the air. When Arya asked about Evelyn's world, Evelyn hesitated. "It's all meetings, negotiations, deadlines," she said finally. "Success looks good on paper, but it feels empty sometimes." Arya nodded. "Maybe it's not about success. Maybe it's about peace." Evelyn looked at her, struck by the simplicity of it. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," Arya replied softly. "But it's worth trying for." Later, they stopped at a small flower market tucked between narrow streets. Arya moved from stall to stall, smelling every bloom, laughing as she tried to guess their names. She returned to Evelyn's side with a single white lily. "For you," she said. Evelyn accepted it carefully, touched. "What does it mean?" Arya smiled. "New beginnings." The afternoon passed like a quiet symphony, no rush, no pretense. Just sunlight, laughter, and the easy rhythm of two people learning each other's pace. Evelyn noticed how natural it felt to have Arya beside her, not as a helper or guest, but as someone who fit. As the sun began to set, they found a cafe overlooking the sea. Arya ordered tea, Evelyn ordered wine. The light turned golden, reflecting in their glasses. "I've spent so long thinking I had everything I needed," Evelyn said softly, watching the horizon. "But maybe what I really needed was something real. Someone real." Arya reached across the table, her fingers brushing Evelyn's hand. "Then maybe you found her." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of meaning, of promise. When they returned to Evelyn's suite that evening, the city below them glittered like 1,000 tiny stars. Evelyn turned her wheelchair toward the window, still holding the lily. Arya came up behind her, resting her chin gently on Evelyn's shoulder. The city below them shimmered in a sea of gold and silver lights. From Evelyn's penthouse balcony, the world looked small, manageable, almost gentle. Inside, soft music played from the speakers, something low and tender that wrapped the room in warmth. Arya stood by the glass doors, her reflection merging with the skyline. She turned when she heard the soft hum of Evelyn's chair. "You always have this view," she said. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Evelyn shook her head slowly. "The view? No. The silence? Sometimes." Arya crossed the room, stopping just in front of her. "Then let's fill it with something better." She reached for Evelyn's hand, fingers weaving through hers. The gesture was simple, but the current that passed between them was anything but. Evelyn felt her chest tighten, not from fear this time, but from the weight of everything she'd been holding back. "I used to think love was something I'd miss my chance at," Evelyn admitted. "Like the accident closed that chapter forever." Arya knelt beside her, their eyes level. "Love doesn't have chapters," she said softly. "It keeps rewriting itself. Every time you're brave enough to open it again." Evelyn's breath caught. She reached out, touching a strand of Arya's hair that had slipped loose, letting it coil around her finger. "You make me want to read again," she whispered. Arya smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then read me." For a long time, neither spoke. They just existed in the same breath, the same space. Arya leaned closer until their foreheads touched. The world beyond the glass disappeared. There was only the warmth of skin, the rhythm of shared silence. When their lips met, it was slow, less a kiss and more a promise. It was the way one might touch something fragile but precious, like sunlight on glass. Evelyn's hand slid up to Arya's neck, her thumb tracing the soft pulse beneath her jaw. Arya's fingers rested lightly on Evelyn's arm, grounding her, steadying her, as if to say you're safe here. They stayed like that, drawing strength from the closeness. When they finally pulled back, the air between them felt different, alive, charged, honest. Arya brushed her thumb along Evelyn's cheek. You don't have to be strong right now, she whispered. You just have to be you. Evelyn closed her eyes. And if I don't know who that is anymore? Arya smiled. Then we'll find her. Together. Evelyn laughed quietly, a sound mixed with relief and awe. You make everything sound possible. That's because it is. Outside, the city lights flickered like a living heartbeat. Inside, the two women stayed close, talking softly, laughing between half-finished sentences, stealing glances that spoke more than words ever could. The night stretched on, full of small confessions and shared stillness, until at last Evelyn realized she wasn't pretending anymore. For the first time in years, she wasn't surviving. She was living. Weeks passed, though to Evelyn it felt as though time had started keeping a gentler rhythm. The sharp edges of her days, the endless meetings, the sterile perfection of her office, the polished armor she wore for the world, began to soften. Arya had a way of doing that. She didn't push. She simply arrived each morning with coffee and laughter, sunlight following wherever she went. Evelyn's staff had noticed the change first. The CEO, who once barely looked up from her laptop, was now smiling more, humming between calls, sometimes even stepping outside for lunch. When Arya stopped by, the atmosphere shifted lighter, warmer, alive. Evelyn's assistant once whispered that it was nice to finally see the boss in love. But to Evelyn, it didn't feel like falling in love. It felt like coming home. One evening, they drove back to the same garden where the wedding had taken place, the night everything began. The lights still hung from the trees, now dimmed and swaying gently in the breeze. Evelyn's chair rolled along the stone path, and Arya walked beside her, holding her hand. Remember the spot? Arya asked softly. How could I forget? Evelyn smiled. You walked up to me like you'd known me forever. Arya chuckled. Maybe I did. Somewhere deep down, maybe I already loved you. Evelyn turned to her, eyes glistening. You make me believe in impossible things. Good, Arya whispered, leaning closer. Because love is the most impossible thing we ever survive. They stayed there for a long while, wrapped in the quiet hum of night, remembering how it all started, the dance, the laughter, the moment their worlds collided. Evelyn reached up, touching Arya's face gently. You changed everything, she said. Arya smiled, her eyes shining. No, Evelyn. You let yourself be changed. There's a difference. Evelyn laughed softly, a sound that carried years of pain and release. Before you, I was always trying to prove I was enough. Now, I just am. Arya leaned in, resting her forehead against hers. That's all I ever wanted you to feel. The wind brushed through the trees, scattering petals across the path. Evelyn reached out to catch one, then looked at Arya. You know, she said playfully, this would make a great story. Arya grinned. What would you call it? Evelyn thought for a moment, her gaze soft and full. The Woman Who Stayed. They laughed together, the kind of laughter that comes when two hearts finally find their rhythm. And as the city lights flickered in the distance, Evelyn realized that her life no longer felt divided between before and after. It was simply now. The billionaire who once sat alone at a wedding had found something rarer than fortune or fame, someone who saw her beyond the walls, beyond the chair, beyond the legend. And when Arya kissed her under the same golden lights where it all began, it wasn't the beginning or the end.